I'm using the non-grog or the grog clay, and one of the things I'm finding is that the clay is actually drying a little bit harder or a little bit faster than I like. And most of the time I do use brushes. For example, this is a silicone brush, and I do have these bristle brushes that I tend to use. So I usually wet the clay. This is water-based clay, and then I'll go like this way. Now, one of the things I'm finding is if I'm like smoothing it out with my finger, it actually leaves the little pockets of the grog in there. And if you use the silicone tool that I really like using for water-based clay, if you kind of just do it like that, you will see a lot of the imperfections. But because this hardens much faster, you have to be a lot more faster with it. Now, I am having issues with some of the proportions, and if I rotate the sculpture, I don't know if I'm really happy with some of this. On the model, you actually see quite a bit, and this is getting pretty dry because when the temperature gets to be warmer, that's what happens. But for this sort of type of sculpture, you would have to kind of wet this pretty well. And the more you wet it, one thing that I find is that the grog comes to the surface. And it is quite evident. It's very groggy. So if I was to use this, there's all sorts of little granules everywhere that make it a little bit more interesting to sculpt. Remember, the reason I'm using this sort of clay is that it makes firing the sculpture a lot easier than just having non-grog. So with the grog, it helps the firing process. So in a way, it's a very small sacrifice that you make. So from here, you have the hair I built up the hair quite a bit, and there is an indication she's in very good shape, but she's also not super muscular. But there's subtle indications where the serratus is and where the rib cage is, and with the addition where the scapula and the shoulder blade is. Of course, this is the acromion process, and the acromion, because she's moving this forward, is going to be a little bit more indicated. So the back is a little bit flat for now, and I think a little bit too muscular for my liking, but once I get the proportions right, I will kind of smooth it out. One thing I'm finding is that using a cloth really helps out for this sort of sculpture. And you know, it is a process. It takes a while to do these, and I try and do one, you know, every week at least to put it up. But I wanted to fill you in on the status of this particular sculpture, and the poses that I'm getting are from Female Anatomy for Artists online. I believe they're located in Europe, so but they're a little bit more expensive, and they don't give you as much as postspace.com. Postspace.com gives you like 20 image per pose, which is probably the best bet, but these guys have much more availability of different types of models. And I believe that Postspace has got a little bit of, they don't have as many like male models as opposed to female models, so in a way I kind of wanted to have some male models as well, because I've been doing female poses for a while. But this is the status of the sculpture, and I'm going to continue doing it. I'll probably have one more session on this pose, and then I'll start a new one. And of course, some of you have asked me, what do you do with the sculpture from drying out? And I usually don't show this when I sculpt, but I take a water bottle and I drench it just with tons of water. And at this point, you can put a plastic bag over it. That's what I'm going to do. But some people get cloths and they drape it over the sculpture itself and then put a plastic bag. But I'm just going to put a plastic bag on the sculpture. Just make sure that you seal it. Usually if I touch the sculpture like this, it's good enough to seal from day to day. And that's pretty much how you keep a sculpture from drying out.